By 1940, Benito Mussolini was convinced that destiny was his for the taking. While German tanks shattered the French army in just 6 weeks, Mussolini watched from the sidelines, green with envy. He dreamed of a restored Roman Empire in North Africa, the Balkans, the entire Mediterranean, all under his new fascist banner. And as France began to collapse, Mussolini decided to jump into the war. He was like a gambler showing up at the casino after someone else had already won the jackpot. But there was one tiny problem. Italy wasn't ready for a war. Not even close. Throughout the 1930s, Italy had been flexing its muscles, but it was mostly for show. They invaded Ethiopia with outdated equipment, even resorting to poison gas, and then declared a grand victory, as if Caesar himself had returned. But beneath all the propaganda, Italy's military was basically a museum piece. Their tanks had armor so thin they were barely better than World War I models. Their rifles were often older than the soldiers carrying them. Their aircraft had weak engines and even weaker guns. And perhaps, worst of all, they had almost no fuel. Modern warfare runs on oil, and Italy had to import nearly all of it. The moment the Allies cut off their sea routes, Mussolini's new empire started to suffocate before it was even born. But Mussolini didn't seem to care. He wanted territory, he wanted prestige, and he desperately wanted a seat at the Axis victory banquet. His first move was a disaster waiting to happen. In October 1940, Italy invaded Greece from its foothold in Albania. The plan was simple: a swift, glorious march to Athens, just like the ancient Roman legions. The reality: freezing rain, treacherous mountains, and roads choked with mud. And more importantly, Greek resistance that simply refused to break. Soon, the Greek army counterattacked, pushing the Italian forces all the way back into Albania. Italian generals were frantically begging for reinforcements. In Berlin, Hitler watched in disbelief. The Balkans, which he needed to be stable, were now on fire. To rescue his ally, Germany was forced to invade both Yugoslavia and Greece, a move that delayed Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, by several critical weeks. For Hitler, this was the first sign that his Italian partner might be inconvenient. At the same time, Mussolini decided to try another stunt, invading British-held Egypt from Libya. He imagined seizing the Suez Canal, crippling the British Empire, and finally making the Mediterranean an Italian lake. Instead, reality delivered another brutal punch. The British counterattacked with a force that was much smaller than the Italians, but it was far better supplied, better trained, and better equipped. Within a few months, a staggering 130,000 Italian soldiers were captured. An entire army group had collapsed. Once again, Germany had to come to the rescue, this time sending the newly formed Afrika Corps under the command of a rising star named Erwin Rommel. Back in Italy, people started making grim jokes that their country supplied the men, while Germany supplied, well, everything else. Even Hitler stopped pretending. He famously remarked that leading the Axis was like dragging a corpse. As the war escalated, Italy's weaknesses just kept multiplying. Its industrial base was weak, unable to produce the tanks, planes, and ships needed for a global conflict. Its officer corps was often poorly trained, clinging to outdated doctrines from the last war. Production was slow, and the command structure was a mess of competing egos and divided loyalties. To be clear, Italian soldiers fought bravely in many battles, particularly on the Eastern Front in Russia and in the deserts of North Africa. But bravery can't fix a fuel shortage. Courage can't mend broken supply lines or magically produce modern tanks. By 1942, Mussolini's dream of a new Roman Empire was dissolving faster than it had ever appeared. Then came the final blows. The Allies landed in North Africa, pushing the Axis out of the continent. Then they landed in Sicily, setting foot on Italian home soil. Allied bombers began pounding Italian cities one by one. Food shortages and strict rationing became the new reality for civilians. All the propaganda in the world couldn't convince anyone that victory was just around the corner. Morale completely collapsed. The people's confidence in Mussolini evaporated. By the summer of 1943, Italy was exhausted. The factories were silent. The war was visibly, undeniably lost. Behind the scenes, the Italian monarchy decided it was time to act. King Victor Emmanuel III summoned Mussolini to a private meeting and calmly informed him that he was dismissed from his post. As Mussolini walked outside, He was arrested by secret police and removed from power. Who's like that? Italy then quietly began negotiating an armistice with the Allies. When it was announced, Italy officially switched sides, triggering chaos across the country. Germany, enraged by the betrayal, invaded its former partner. German troops disarmed the Italian army and occupied the northern half of the country. In a dramatic raid, German commandos rescued Mussolini from his prison and installed him as the puppet leader of a new fascist state in northern Italy. From there, he could only watch as his shattered nation became a brutal battlefield, torn apart by fighting between the Nazis, Italian partisans, and the advancing Allied armies. Mussolini entered the war, chasing the glory of Caesar and Augustus. He left it as a cautionary tale. Italy wasn't useless in the war because its soldiers lacked courage. It failed because its leadership mistook ambition for capability. Mussolini tried to wage a modern, mechanized war without modern industry, without modern logistics, and without any real plan beyond shouting slogans from a balcony. When the bombs finally stopped falling in 1945, the Roman Empire had not returned. Italy had been liberated, but at a terrible cost that would haunt its politics and its people for decades to come. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time.